Pride Month. Fuck, dude. I'm such an idiot. It's like so stupid. So my gift to you this Pride Month is a lot of movies. I don't really want to say that they're like movie reviews in a row, more like I'm recommending you movies that you probably haven't seen, horror movies specifically. And I know this title says summer slashers, but I'm opening up the definition of that because when I was making this video, I was watching all of these slashers and I was realizing I'm getting fucking bored and I was just getting super bored, and I feel like I couldn't in my right heart recommend people a bunch of movies that they probably couldn't even watch in a row because they'd get bored. No. So I'm opening up the term slasher to also include a lot of people get unalived. I hate that I have to say that, but I don't want to get my first video shadow banned. So yeah, like a lot of people are getting unalived in these movies. That's the basis for this. So I was sifting through piles and piles of classic slashers, classic horror movies, deep cuts, movies with an $8,000 budget, everywhere, every which way but loose, movies that aren't on any streaming services that I literally had to go on the dark web to find. Not really the dark web, but like, you know what I mean? Trying to make a summer horror movies list because summer is the time to get spooked. So let's do it. Just a little bit brain dead because you have no idea how many movies I had to watch to find ones that I haven't seen before and that were good. It was a lot of work, and I'm a very active lurker on the horror side of YouTube, so I know what other people are recommending as well, and that was hard to recommend movies that I never seen. Like just today I finished up 2 movies that I'm not recommending, but it's just been like a constant marathon for me all the time. So I'm not just gonna talk about ones that I liked, I'm also gonna talk about ones that were shitty, and I'm gonna get that out of the way before I talk about the ones that I liked, so you can just skip right through if you don't care about that, but I think it's really funny, and I want to talk about it because I went through some shit and I want to talk to you about it. I want to talk to you about my horrible experience. So another thing is I ranked these movies on a scale. So this isn't a scale of how good or bad it is. This is a scale that I call the nihilism scale. And 1 is like extremely campy. Think Renfield, like that vampire horror movie. Like it's very funny, it's not very serious, there's gore and stuff, but it's kind of like, it's not very dark, if that makes sense. 10 is like based on true events, very disturbing, hard to watch, maybe possible, trigger warning because it is so intense. So there's a 1 and a 10, and I ranked all of these movies that I'm going to recommend to you on this nihilism scale because I think that's helpful, because I was watching these slashers and some of them take wildly different approaches to gore and stuff, so I just thought it was like a helpful metric based on like if you're going to be into it or not, because I'm not just going to recommend really good serious movies, I'm also going to recommend like funny ones that I thought were good, because I am a black comedy enjoyer sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. So the higher up it is on this scale, the more it is like scary per se. But I think there's elements of like ones that are on the 1 side that are scary too. It's just not in the same way. So like I said, I'm gonna get the shitter stinkers out of the way first, and ones that I do not recommend. And these aren't all the ones that I watched, just the ones that really stood out as like actually really, really hard to get through, and I have complaints about them that I need to get off my chest because they're just gonna go into the void. I'm not gonna remember. So the first total stinker is called Compliance. Compliance was made in 2012, and the summary is a fast food worker who's accused of theft is put through the ringer as her boss at the direction of a phone caller says he's a cop, and subjects her to increasingly harsh forms of interrogation. I got recommended this by another, like not personally, just like through a video, by another horror content creator on like a most disturbing movies list, and I was kind of expecting it to go in a completely different direction. So it's based on a true story of something that happened where this dude was calling like fast food restaurants and pretending to be the cops and then getting women to completely undress themselves in front of their managers and basically like do acts towards people, and he got sent to jail, obviously, as he fucking should. But it's like the movie was such... I was not expecting it. I was not expecting to see that. But it was so offensive to whoever had to go through that. It was not disturbing in a way that was like, damn, this is like a really disturbing movie. It was like offensive and like stupid. And it was like 89% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is like actually the reason why I wanted to make a video like this, because people have like sick and twisted ideas of what a good movie is. Because to me, there was lots of like nipple shots, lots of like zoomed in parts where you can tell the like director like got his jollies off a little bit on it. It was really not my favorite vibe, and I might be completely in the wrong, but that's the vibe that I got from the movie, and I felt offended by the movie as a woman. I felt like I'm not going to take away from like an actress making her own decisions, but I did not like that. This is the same director as The Hunt, which I really didn't like either, and I thought it was like super silly and super campy, and I think the tone of it being a little bit silly and campy, I was completely getting with Compliance. I was getting that complete vibe. I do not recommend it. I literally didn't even finish it. I got like 80 or 90% of the way through, and then I'm like, oh, nothing horror related is gonna happen. It's literally just someone undressing and being... And why did we need a movie made about it in the first place? But also, like, why did you choose that guy to make it? That is getting maybe like a 7 out of 10 on the nihilism scale because of the content alone. It's so graphic and it's like so unnecessary. So unnecessary. The next one that I thought was a total stinker and I didn't finish was Slumber Party Massacre, and this one is from 2021, and it is basically a remake of the 1982 slasher film about sorority girls attacked by a maniac killer with a large electric drill. I was pumped for this because it's made in 2021. There's a large electric drill. Like, I was excited to see maybe what would happen. It was the dialogue was so stupid. It was literally like a Fupi original, or like a Poopy Fubo 2T original. It was so bad. It was like, I kept trying to give it chances, and it was just had that, sometimes there's like a Riverdale needle injection that like some slashers made in like past 2015 get, and this one just had too much injected into it. Way too much. A little bit's fine, and we're gonna get into that, but it just had this gigantic overdose of Riverdale vibe inside of it in a way that was so hard to actually finish. I didn't finish it. I got 50% and I'm like, okay, fuck this, I'm not gonna watch this. It kind of did like a spin on the girl bossification of like the murderer trope, and it was trying to do like, oh, she's avenging her mother who is the only survivor, so she's going into the situation knowing she's to fight the drill guy, and they're still running from him. So like, I don't get what the whole message of the thing was, like what the identity of the movie was. They're still running from someone who, it just like, I thought they were planning on like unaliving this guy, but they just don't. It's crazy. Okay, my next stinker is Freaky with Vince Vaughn. This was from 2020. It's what it says online. I just can't believe that. Like, it just seemed like it was from 2016. And it's basically, I'm just gonna read the description. 17-year-old Millie spends her days trying to survive high school when she becomes the latest target of the butcher, the town's infamous serial unaliver. Her senior year becomes the least of her worries. And basically, the whole point is like they switch bodies. So it's kind of like The Hot Chick, but it's with Vince Vaughn, and he's a serial unaliver, and then the teenage girl, you know, because like they just switch bodies because the dialogue was so shitty, and it was just it was like the same thing as the other movie I was talking about. The Riverdale was too much. It was too much in it. Both of these are like a -1 out of 10 on the nihilism scale. I swear to God. And I didn't even finish it. I can tell you that. It's silly. Silly, capital C, silly. Okay, this is one of the last stinkers I'm going to talk about. It's The Voices with Ryan Reynolds. And it's basically about Ryan Reynolds having schizophrenia, and his dog and his cat are like the angel, the devil and the angel. It was kind of silly in the first half, and then I was like, it was so offensive if you have schizophrenia, because it was portraying it so awfully, and not in a way that was super dark or anything. It was just wrong, and it could have been a much better movie. I don't really know though, because the premise is not strong. I just watched it out of curiosity mostly, and I didn't expect Ryan Reynolds to be like the serial unaliver in a town, because he's so he doesn't fit the profile, like objectively speaking. I did not love that movie. I didn't love it. My next one that I didn't finish was called Candyland. Is a 2022 truck stop slasher centering on a group of, I don't even know what to say on YouTube to not get it flagged. They're lot lizards, basically. If you know, you know. And it's kind of chic at the beginning, and I was really actually excited because it was very smartly filmed. It was really artistically really gorgeous, and the gore was really good at the beginning. And then it got so incredibly graphically savage. It was uncomfortable, and I didn't finish it because I would not recommend it to you. I didn't love it. And I don't know what I was expecting based on the poster, but a lot of slashers have a woman on the poster, and it's not extremely hardcore, to watch. I want to give this a 7 out of 10 just because of those scenes alone. I just didn't finish it. It's probably good. I mean, it has a 2.9 on letterboxd, so I don't know. I'm not really into movies that have a lot of those scenes. Poor Things was definitely an exception for me. Okay, that was my last of the ones that I don't recommend. Now I'm going to get into my actual list of my recommendations for horror movies. Not all of these are fantastic. Obviously, I'm not perfect, and I'm not going to find 30 Hereditaries for you to watch, but these I genuinely liked. I was entertained, and there's some for everybody. If you know what I mean. Before I talk about them, I want to recommend something that everybody has seen, but I could not say it. My favorite slasher in the entire world is X and then Pearl, together. They're a great double feature, and by the negative 27% chance that you haven't seen it, you should watch those. My first recommendation is specifically for people who would have loved Five Nights at Freddy's if it was good. And that's really me. I really, really wished Five Nights at Freddy's was kind of scary. And I know this is kind of breaking the rules a little bit because it's a little bit paranormal, but I don't think so. But I'm going to recommend Willy's Wonderland with Nick Cage. I'm a Nick Cage defender. So first of all, I think he's an incredible actor, but he doesn't even have one line of dialogue in this entire movie. It's basically about him fighting off these animatronic characters, and it's very much a slasher. There is a ton of unaliving happening in really creative, crazy ways, and I was genuinely unsettled by the characters. I want to give it maybe a 4 out of 10 on the scale. It's so silly and funny to watch, and Nick Cage not saying one word but saying so much is crazy. And I am really wanting to watch the Banana Splits, and I haven't seen that one yet, but that's basically the same premise, where it's animatronics unaliving people. Let me know if you've seen that one and you like it, because I honestly do not have it in me anymore to watch any more bad movies, because I've seen a lot. It's great. Next, I'm going to recommend Wolf Creek. It is actually insane to start off my list with a movie that has 61% of Rotten Tomatoes, and a 2.6 on Letterboxd. I don't give a toot. It's fun. It's it's actually free on Tubi, so there's no risk. And if you hate it, there's no lose. It's from 2005. and it follows a serial unaliver in the Australian outback. And another thing I learned doing this list was that Australians know how to do horror movies very well. Very, very, very well. Getting a 10 out of 10 on the nihilism scale, so that means it's extremely disturbing, and it is also based on a true story. And there's one scene in this where the serial unaliver dude literally paralyzes someone with like one move that was like, it just is so horrifying, and it seems incredibly realistic. And I was so impressed by like how well this movie portrays it, like the fear of being in that situation. I don't know if it's because I'm close in age with the main characters, or it does a really good job of like making you care about them. But I was scared out of my fucking mind watching this in my bed, scared like this. I loved it though. I thought it was super good. The relationship dynamics are not spoon-fed to you, and I think that's the Riverdale curse, where relationship dynamics are very much shoved in your face, and that's annoying. So this is like a very real movie, and it does respect like the actual crime, because it puts the people that were affected by that in such like a real human way. Not that they were based on actual people, it's like the crimes are based on real crimes, but it just feels respectful in that way. But this movie is worse than The House That Jack Built on the scale. I'd say The House That Jack Built is probably like a 9 out of 10, and this is a 10 out of 10. That's crazy to say, because House That Jack Built's one of the worst on the scale. Not the worst, like I still like it, very much enjoyed that movie, but this one is actually like super disturbing. The next one I did not think that I would like, but I want to recommend Thanksgiving, and this one is like a huge, super popular movie, so it's kind of like stupid to even talk about, but for me, I would never have watched it ever, and I did for this video, and I feel like people should give it another chance. This one is a 3 out of 10. It's weirdly cheesy, but weirdly good, and it's made specifically for the 2024 audience that's very self-aware and always trying to get underneath the writing like so much. It's like very self-aware in that way that I did not expect an Addison Rae movie to be. It's so weird. I liked how the killer fed the cat. That was probably my favorite part. I actually didn't finish it all the way, but I wanted to recommend it because the 80% that I did finish, I just knew it'd be a really good group watch. And if you're not looking for something serious and you want something a little bit scary and a little bit like, whoa, that kind of like was fucked up, this is a really good choice. Like, it's, I don't know, it's entertaining, but it has like drops of Riverdale in it, but not as diabolically as 99% of these campy slashers are. So that gets it a spot on here. And there needs to be some sillier ones on here because some of them are very, 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 very intense. Next one is kind of piggybacking off of that idea. And this one gets a 1 out of 10. And it's called Spree. And I think a lot of people have heard of this one either, but not many have actually watched it. Basically, this guy's desperate for an online following. So he is live streaming his murderers on his iPhone in the car. And it's very silly, but I actually really, really enjoyed it, and I thought the main dude did a fantastic job. He's the same guy that's Steve in Stranger Things. Joe Keery, you know who that is. So I thought it was really good, and I actually want to recommend it if you're in the mood for a silly slasher. It's fantastic. And unalives were very like unique, and that's like another thing. Like, I've been watching so many slashers, like I've been attuned to like what's a unique way, because I've seen so many things. It's like nothing has not been done before. This is also a found footage, but it's super unique because it's like found footage on the phone and it doesn't seem stupid, which is like never been done before. Never been done before. I promise they get more deep cuts, but I'm getting into another one that you probably heard of already. This is Eden Lake, made in 2008, and it is basically about a couple who is literally getting harassed by kids, basically. And it's the most infuriating movie ever. It's so infuriating. You literally, these kids are so evil. It's insane. This is getting a 8 out of 10, maybe even teetering on a 9. It is very, very disturbing and very, very real in the way that you feel very upset about what happens, and it seems unfair. And like, it really hits on one of my things that I really don't like, is like, I don't like couples in horror movies that seem very much in love and like developed. I don't like it when they're separated at all. It makes me super anxious. Mostly it's just like a super disturbing wild ride, if you're along for the ride. This is on a lot of people's like I'll never watch again list. I don't think it's that disturbing, but it's definitely very scary and a lot. It's very heavy. It's definitely not like a fun group party movie. Although there's not that many unalives as like a typical slasher, this one feels like a slasher because there's so much running away and there's so much like trying to escape. I just felt like it could be on this list super easily. Okay, my next two are both have the same social issue that they bring up, but they bring them up in like a 2 out of 10 way and then a 10 out of 10 way. So there's that. I think it's a fantastic double feature if you really want to see social responses to racism, and it's really kind of interesting to see like two completely different ways that people are making horror movies about it. Maniacs is the first one. It's from 2001. It has an insanely intense title card. It's like Fruit Ninja, literally, the title card. There's the classic sports car, babes in the sports car scene, as you need in all slasher movies from the 2000s. Extremely deliciously cheesy, and it's really, really funny in a way that's like so stupid. I really loved the camera that they used. I don't know what it is about it. I don't even know if it was film. I just really liked the camera, and I think if it were like made now, like with a fully HD digital camera, this movie would be awful. But I like the camera they used, and the unalives are really, really, really unique. And it's basically about a group of friends who accidentally end up at a super, 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 super racist, like culty gathering that is hidden as like this fun event. And it's like they just get picked off one by one. Again, this is a 2 out of 10. It's like super silly. The other one, that's a 10 out of 10. It's extremely, actually trigger warning, extremely disturbing. This one's soft and quiet. Reviews for this movie are awful. They say that it's exploitative and that it's like a really bad movie because it portrays something horrific. But I think this movie is such a real life representation of white supremacy in a way that is, it's like guttural, real, how it actually manifests in real life and how people get like manipulated into being like this because they're super lonely and they have nothing, like they have no community, so they gravitate towards it and they blame all their problems on like other people. It's insane. It also has a really interesting thing where it shows people that seem kind of normal but like a little bit like they're a little bit dangerous, and they end up being extremely dangerous and psychopathic. And I think that's something that's I've never seen in a horror movie before, where like someone's little red flags become like actual evil. And that's something I always thought existed, and I think if it came down to it, people that are a little bit racist are super, 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 super racist. Because if you are a little bit on the surface and it comes off to people, you would do some really terrible shit. This doesn't need to be a sort of commentary. I just think you should watch the movie if you can handle extreme violence. I would not recommend this movie if it weren't made by the demographic specifically that's getting targeted. Because if this were just a random white person making this movie, I would say that it's exploitative for sure. But because it's somebody's story, not like the real story or whatever, but it's somebody's like real kind of lived experience in a movie emotionally, I think that it's kind of a masterpiece in that way. It's really disturbingly realistic in a lot of ways. And if you have like a strong stomach and you want to get your heart ripped in half, watch that movie. It's just so sad. It's like beyond a horror movie. But Maniacs and Soft and Quiet are two like racism not slashers, horror movies. First one's a slasher. Soft and Quiet is definitely more of a psychological horror disturbing movie. Okay, I'm gonna go on with another 10 out of 10 movie it doesn't even have one single unalive in the entire thing, but it's about a real story about someone that did a mass event, if you know what I mean, in Australia. And it's very much like My Friend Dahmer, where it's the like psychological analysis of somebody who did horrible things, and it like follows their day to day. This is one of the few movies on here that I gave a 5 stars. I saw it at a DVD store, and the cover just really intrigued me. So I took a quick pic, and then I went home and watched it, and genuinely one of the most like terrifying, disturbing ways that I've seen psychopathy and chaos displayed. And you just see these red flags of this guy, and it's a real story, 100% true. So like you see the red flags of this dude, and it's really, really scary to witness. And there is basically no trigger warning for this, but psychologically so riveting to watch, and like it is very scary because you just see how dangerous this person is, and you don't really know what's going to happen, and then what happens, and you're like, holy, that's insane. And I think it was respectful to what actually happened because it was done so incredibly well. And I came off a string of horrible movies, and then I watched this and I was like, thank God there's good movies out there, because this was such leaps and bounds above so many other movies. Just really fantastic. Completely opposite vibe. Like actually on the other side of the moon. I want to recommend Cabin Fever 2, and this is an objectively bad movie. This is getting a 2 out of 10 because it's very gross, but it's super, super, super unserious. Cabin Fever 1 is about a virus that basically turns people into like their flesh just starts rotting off. But Cabin Fever 2 is like way more silly than Cabin Fever 1, if that's even possible. But I want to recommend it specifically to people who want to see a gross horror movie, because it's not even like objectively like not good. It's not good in like the film bro way, but in the like you want to see something disgusting way, it's so fun to watch. And when you're a horror enjoyer, you kind of have to like give props to something that is so gross and goes completely all the way with it, because if they weren't pushing the boundaries of that, there's a lot of movies that probably wouldn't have been made. Most disgusting scene I've ever seen in my entire life was from this movie. To this day, I have not seen anything worse than that, and you'll know if you watch it. I'm not going to explain it to you, and that sounds really rude, and I know you really want me to, but it involves flesh-eating diseases in the worst possible place that there possibly could be. And this is really kind of dumb, and like maybe this is like my personal attachment to. There is an actress in this movie that has the exact same extremely rare disease that I have, and it's called duodenotria, and it's when I was kind of born without my esophagus attaching to my stomach. So I had this surgery, and it's a very specific scar that I have on my stomach, and it's super big. And one of the actresses in this movie like has the exact same thing, and it was actually like I had to pause the TV, and I was like, holy shit, I've never seen representation of that in my entire life. And I'm just watching this random horror movie, and there's like the stereotypically really super like attractive girl in the movie having the same scar as me, and they're not even hiding it. It was so nice to see. So this movie does have a very special place in my heart because of that, but also because it's so gross in the most like horrible way, and it's really, really fun to watch if you like that stuff. If you don't, just do not watch it. I actually swear to God, you're gonna hate me so much. Okay, the next one I'm gonna recommend is the newest one on the entire list, and it's called In a Violent Nature, and it's still in theaters while I post this, so if you like slashers, I think you should definitely go see it. It is so refreshing to watch because it does what no slasher has done before this, where it has like the campy, over the top, unaliving scenes, but there's none of the campy music and none of the campy effects that the blood doesn't look like blood, and like it's kind of silly. So it's super dark. It's literally an anxiety nightmare. Like, I was watching scenes of this and I was actually so upset. I thought the ending was just perfect. I was anxiety ridden the entire time. It is seriously one of the best slashers I've ever seen, and people are saying that the dialogue and the writing is bad, but everyone spoke super weird because the main character, Johnny, didn't understand like humans. He literally can't comprehend like the way that adults speak to each other and what they're saying. He only can comprehend the very surface level, which is like chills, creepy, scary. And that yoga unaliving scene, the yoga girl, what people are saying about that is in no way exaggerated to what it's actually like. This one is getting a 7 out of 10. It's extremely gory, but it's not super realistic. But it is up there on the realism scale, and it's up there on like the gross factor of it all. The next one I want to recommend is getting like maybe a 5 out of 10, and it's called The Dark and the Wicked. This one is a newer movie. God, I just looked up the year of it, and the scenes of it are actually scaring me as fuck. And I know this one is more paranormal than a slasher, but I needed to recommend it because it's the closest thing I've watched to Hereditary since I've seen Hereditary. Like, two siblings dealing with something evil in their house, and their other family members are literally basically evil. There's lots of scenes in this that are quite nightmarish. I didn't love the plot. Like, I thought it was missing a little something, like it was missing maybe like a driving thing, but it is very scary, and it does its job of being scary, and that's all I can really ask. There is a crazy scene where a woman is cutting carrots, and yet like something happens. It makes you like actually get super nauseous thinking about it. Next one is like literally out of left field, and I need you to really listen before you decide to watch it, because it might not be your thing, or it might literally be your exact thing. It was my exact thing. This one's called The Wolf House, and it was 2020, and it's a stop motion horror movie about a metaphor about a real life event. So basically there was this German dude who has very awful past, if you know what I mean, and he went to Chile and started a colony there where he forced people to work, and he kept people there against their will. Colonia Dignidad, I think is how you pronounce it. I don't know much about that, but this movie was intense, and I'm hesitantly going to give this a 9 out of 10 on the scale because it is so intense and dark, and there's no real life gore or unaliving, but it's all an extreme metaphor. A girl who escapes this colony and goes to this random house in the woods and lives there. It's literally like a feat. It's like very much like Mad God, same vibe, and there's things that you can't really explain in real life that are metaphors in this movie that are crazy. And there's scenes in this movie that like I will not soon forget. Opposite of The Wolf House, I want to recommend Tragedy Girls, and this has like almost too much Riverdale injected into it, but just enough where I found it entertaining and I found it pretty good. This is getting a 1 out of 10. There's Josh Hutcherson in this. It's just like in its genre of like campy slashers with teenagers in high school. It's like cream of the crop pretty much. It's about two girls who are basically serial unalivers, and it's like a super campy take on like friendship and stuff. But if you're going to watch a movie that has a little bit of Riverdale in it, this is basically the one that I would watch. And I've seen a lot. Oh my god. I don't know if it's because I'm a girl, but I was pretty interested in the plot of like their friendship. I don't know, like I don't know if it's because I'm just like a teenage girl at heart, but I was actually pretty into the plot in a way that I was not into the plot for a lot of movies. The next one I recommend is actually one of my favorite ones on the entire list, and this one is called Revenge, and it's getting a 8 out of 10. This is a Neon movie, which is like, that's actually my favorite production studio right now. They're releasing some total bangers. Basically, Jeremy Fragrance has a girlfriend, and he brings her, he's having an affair with this girlfriend, and he brings her to the desert with his friends, and they do something horrible to her, and so she goes on a rampager. And that's all I'm gonna say. It's like liminal desert horror. It has a very, very similar color palette to Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. It's like just that bright desert sun with like these pops of like extreme color. It's bloody, it's emotional, it's shot well, and there's literally a scene where she cauterizes herself with a beer can that's like cut like open, so it's like long, and she cauterizes her wound with the beer can, and it leaves the imprint of an eagle from the beer can logo on her stomach. That's hard, and it's like so stupid. I like to call this phantasmagorical, where like it's fantasy and gore, and it's very much like Mandy. It's the closest movie to Mandy I've seen since I watched Mandy, so if you liked Mandy, you'll probably like it. Next one I'm going to recommend is Hounds of Love, and this is getting a 9 out of 10 because it is based on a bunch of true crime. And the title card is Boots. The actual story is really horrible. It's a little bit slow, but it's very, very interesting because it's about the dynamics of two unaliver serial people who are in a relationship together, and that's always like a really like dumbfounding thing. If you're into true crime a little bit, you know about like how sometimes people will find each other and like both be total sadist psychopaths, and it's super interesting to like see their daily dynamic and how fucked up it might be, and that's basically what Hounds of Love like explores. And if you're at all interested in that specific thing, it's a great movie. If you're not into true crime at all, do not watch this movie because it's extremely disturbing, so it's not worth it if you're not into that. Movies like this, where it really tries to explore like the psychological phenomenon that's fucking going on with these insane people, I just think it's interesting, I guess. Next one is getting a 3 out of 10, and this is Sissy, and it's really similar to the other ones I was saying that have like a bit of Riverdale in it, where it's like not as serious. This is basically a slasher with some juicy drama in it. I think this would be great for the girls. Like, I was really interested in the drama, and it has twists in it that I literally didn't see coming at all. It has really unique scenes of people getting unalived. Like, I don't know what else to say because it's like I don't want to spoil it for you, but if you're into like a kind of a more lighthearted slasher, this is a super good choice. Really, really great like gore effects, which is really interesting. I think this is maybe a Shudder movie, so maybe that's why. I find that Shudder has fantastic gore. I don't know like if that's something that they really try hard at, but every Shudder movie I've watched has not disappointed in that way. I just find them a little bit flat in terms of like theme and meaning, I guess. But not everyone needs that in the movie, and that's why I'm putting these silly ones on here, because sometimes you don't even need a theme. Sometimes you just need a dream and a wish. The next one I'm going to recommend is one that I can't believe I hadn't seen before, and this one's getting a 9 out of 10, and it's called Inside. Trigger warning, massive trigger warning, there is an animal death in this one that's on screen. There is also one in Hounds of Love, but it's off screen. But this one in Inside actually was very fucked up, but it wasn't realistic. Like the rest of the movie was extremely realistic, so, and this one was really obviously fake, so I feel like they were being nice to the audience in that way, because it really hit home for me, because it was, I don't even want to talk about it. It was a cat. I have 2 cats. They're my favorite animal, and I just hated it, and I really wish it didn't happen, but it was needed for the scene. Like, it wouldn't have made sense any other way. Kind of like how in a slasher movie there's like Chekhov's cat. Like, that's basically like what it is. Like, you know something's gonna happen. This gets a -1 star if I were ranking it for the CGI baby. Basically a French movie, which French movies are so insanely fucked up a lot of the time with like in the horror spectrum. Seriously, like I don't think that anyone's pushing the envelope like French movies are in that way. About a woman who's pregnant, who is fighting off another woman that wants her baby. And it is just like a fight to the end. It's so insanely intense. You in shock and awe from me. I was genuinely super afraid, and it's like stylistically gorgeous, stylistically very scary as well. I just thought it was like everything about it was scary, and there is absolutely no point where I thought I knew what was going to happen, which is super rare for like a slasher movie to do. So if you want unpredictable, super gory, super disturbing, good horror movie that's really scary, this is like the perfect one. Next one I want to recommend is Humane, and this is Caitlin Cronenberg's debut movie. So that's David Cronenberg's daughter and Brandon Cronenberg's sister, and Possessor is literally one of my favorite horror movies of all time. So yeah, like I was super excited, and I feel like people aren't really talking about it because it didn't get like a theater release, but it's a great slasher. The thing is, it's a family slasher, so it's like family has to fight, and that is so ripe with juicy drama you can use, and like really like intense, heartbreaking kind of shit you can use. And it was campy, but not too much where it wasn't very real and scary. And I think that people are thinking that the writing is bad because they're not realizing that it's extremely satirical of like tropes in society. Like each of the siblings is very much a trope, and it's like, I think it's totally on purpose, and there's no way that it's not. It's literally like American Horror Story if it were really, 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 really good. That's basically the vibe that I get from it. Okay, I have a little bit of a sore throat, so I'm like rocking on for this last recommendation. Clovis Killer. This one does not have a lot of gore in it. I think there's 0 on-screen unaliving going on. But it's literally Walter White, but if he was a serial unaliver versus him making a bunch of drugs. It's this like insanely realistic portrayal of a serial unaliver in a family dynamic, and his son finds him out. And he's wondering if his dad is this guy that's basically, all these people are going missing and all the facts are lining up, and you are so invested in what's going to happen, and it's like I was on the edge of my fucking seat. Insane. Also, the guy is so good at being evil. It's the same actor as Ben Harmon from American Horror Story, and like that guy is great at being an evil guy. I don't even know where he learned that from. Like, he's a fantastic actor, and he was chilling, like bone chilling in this movie. I think this is more realistic than House That Jack Built when it comes to like the psychoanalysis of a serial, you know? And that's really saying something because House That Jack Built did such a good job of that. He studied true crime cases and like put so many elements of real true crime in this movie in a way that was insane. Like, I was pausing stuff to look at stuff because it was like so weird and gross and real, like what goes on when people like have these like tendencies. And the movie doesn't even try to understand why. It just does evidence, which is all that we really have when it comes to like people that do terrible things. We don't understand why. All we know is like what happens and like what we can like find with evidence. We don't understand anything about why people do that. Like, obviously on like a psychological level we do, but like really truly we wouldn't be profiling the shit out of people if we really knew why. Like, what the fuck is wrong with people? You just like wonder what makes someone want to do that to other people. It's so scary, and it's such a mystery, and it's like staring into a big black hole, and you don't understand what's going on. And I find that like great directors make you feel like you're there, and that was a huge thing with this movie. It was like, felt like you were there, and that's a huge reason why a lot of movies didn't make this list, even though I watched probably 4 times the amount of movies that I recommended. Like, bad directors film things like they think a movie should be filmed, and good directors film things in an entertaining way, and great directors film things and you feel like you're there because they're filming specific things that it feels like to be somewhere. Like when you're talking to someone, you're not talking and looking at them right in the face all the time. Like, you're looking at the little thing next to them, and you're like feeling the wind, and you're feeling the sun, and you're feeling whatever you're holding in your hand. And great directors use all of that to make like an experience. And with horror movies, it's so important to like really make that experience. So on this list, the director is either great or good. And if it was a bad director, I didn't recommend it. I also didn't recommend movies that I couldn't finish because I didn't think it was interesting. There was a lot of those that were probably okay, but I just really wasn't interested in them. I think my top 3 faves of the list, though, are Revenge, In a Violent Nature, and Humane. I just really loved those 3, in my personal opinion. I'm probably gonna write a little letterboxd review for In a Violent Nature because I have more thoughts about it that I would like to say, but I genuinely think it's like so refreshing of a movie, and I think people are just being way too hard on it because it's really cool. Okay, well, if you made it to the end, thanks for listening to me yap and yammer, and I have absolutely no qualifications to recommend people movies. This is just based on stuff that I like, and I like to be scared, and I enjoy horror movies very much. Peace and love.